judges of ICC that sooner than later, they will throw away the case against the deputy president. The ICC should realize that they are not operating on the space.
Uhuru and Ruto await UN Security Council decision as anti-ICC calls intensify.
No man is perfect, or woman for that matter. We all have our faults.
I stand by you. Uhuru tells disciplined forces amid concerns over insecurity. Tallow oil suspends Turkana operation amid discord. And the new millionaires in town, courtesy of the Stanchart Marathon.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
Very good evening to you. I trust you had a great weekend, coming to the end of it and the start of yet a new week right here on KTN Weekend Prime. Many thanks for joining us tonight. And it is Sunday. That means Checkpoint is on and we're back and we'll be live from 9:30. So please do stay with us. We will have the usual analysts, or the usual suspects as we may like to call them, Professor Edward Kisiangani, Moses Korea and Professor Gitile Naituli. And we will be discussing the week's events, particularly that statement that was made by the president yesterday regarding whether or not he will attend the ICC. Open to several forms of interpretation. We will be checking that out, as well as taking a look at the performance of the government in the last 7 months or so. Is everything going according to plan? We will be discussing this later on Checkpoint tonight. So please do stay with us on Twitter. The hashtag we're using is Checkpoint. So please do keep your texts and your tweets coming in for that. Let's start off with the top stories this evening. Pressure is mounting on President Uhuru Kenyatta to skip his trial at the International Criminal Court if the deferral motion is denied. Now, in a matter of hours, the United Nations Security Council will hold a crucial meeting that may be the turning point for the Kenyan cases. It is a sitting that Kenya and the African Union hope will consider the motion to defer the cases against the president and his deputy.
Special prayers for the country's leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. The Kirinyaga Council of Elders found Sunday a perfect day to seek divine intervention at a young newly planted mugumo tree. The belief being that the ancestors will answer their prayers in the United Nations Security Council meeting just hours away.
Tukijua kwamba viongozi wetu wanateswa, tukijua kwamba watoto wetu wanateswa, Mungu katusaidie. Ebu Bwana, kesi iliyoko katika ndege ikaisha mara moja katika jina la Yesu.
It is the country's moment of truth as the Security Council convenes. Kenya's top leadership and the Africa Union will be anxiously monitoring the Security Council events, whether the AU-backed deferral bid for the Kenyan cases will be considered. The Security Council meeting comes 2 weeks before the commencement of President Uhuru Kenyatta's trial on November 12th at The Hague amid mounting pressure on the president to skip his trial if a deferral is rejected.
Tungeuliza jeshi letu lirudi nyumbani tuweze kuchunga mpaka yetu.
ICC is equally following closely developments before the United Nations Security Council. ICC Outreach Officer in Kenya, Maria Kamara, stated any request for deferral submitted to the Security Council will be considered in that forum, which is separate from the ICC. The ICC is an independent judicial institution that does not advise the Security Council on whether to adopt or reject a resolution to defer a case. While Kenya and the Africa Union shift focus to the United Nations Security Council, at The Hague, the prosecutor wants the decision excusing the president from part of his trial reversed. Bensouda wants the president to sit through the whole trial session except for exceptional cases, just as in Ruto's case. The prosecutor intends to appeal against the president's excusal.
Bensouda na timu yake wamekuwa wakiweka mtego hapo. Wanasema tufanye maisha ikuwe ngumu kwa deputy president, ndio akikosa kuja tunasema amekosa kuja, lakini tuko na evidence na hawana. The ICC should realize that they are not operating on the space. His Excellency, the Deputy President and the President have a duty, constitutional duty in this country.
Meanwhile, the Code Coalition meets next week Tuesday to rally its members into supporting a bipartisan approach to the ICC issue. Key ODM leaders have been working on a bipartisan approach to the ICC with their Jubilee Alliance parliamentary counterparts. And as the Security Council meets, it is serious prayers for the country's commander-in-chief and his number 2. Samogina, KTN.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has defended the Kenyan military, saying they need the support of all Kenyans to ensure national security. The president spoke during the annual prayers for the disciplined forces at the Holy Family Basilica. Inspector General of Police David Kimayo reiterated that the police will continue to work with the Kenyan Defence Forces to secure the nation. Ben Kitili reports.
For the second time in less than 48 hours, President Uhuru Kenyatta lashed out at journalists for what government agencies have termed as responsible coverage of the Westgate attack. During a prayer service for the Kenyan Disciplined Forces, President Kenyatta warned journalists of how they report on security matters.
I would really call on especially our media to be responsible in their reporting. I really call upon the media to remember that they, like all of us, have a responsibility for the security of this nation.
The Kenyan press has put the government on the spot of how it handled the Westgate siege, leading to a collision course between the state and the Fourth Estate. However, there appears to be better relations now, as the president called for cooperation in dealing with insecurity.
There are those who like to live and wallow in the mistake, but there are those, and I believe the majority, who learn from their mistakes, and those mistakes make them stronger.
The Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo, lauded the Kenya Defence Forces and police for working together to neutralize the Westgate siege and to generally secure the nation.
I want to believe that we all undertake to join our hands and act for one great task, that is our calling. The disciplined service is a calling job here.
Many problems bedeviling the police and a sharp rise in poaching have been attributed to poor funding of the disciplined forces.
Be satisfied with your salary and you serve the nation without looking for any other thing, because we shall be satisfied and we shall call upon your government to continue looking for the welfare of all these officers present.
Kenyatta promised that his government will look into that.
It is indeed the intention of my government to continually increase the budget available to yourselves in order to ensure that you are able to do that which you must do.
Despite the happenings of the last month, there was much optimism on the security agency's performance.
With the challenges that we face, whether they are the terrorist challenges of insecurity or the political challenges with courts foreign to our land, such challenges are common to men.
The prayer service for the forces is now scheduled to be held annually as the state seeks to fix the country's largely poor security situation. Ben Kitili, KTN.
Now let's take you to the county of Turkana now, where Tullow Oil Company has closed operations at 2 oil wells in Turkana following escalating conflict with the host community. The locals claim that the company, which has evacuated its employees from the affected areas, has failed to give them employment opportunities and tenders that they had supposedly agreed on. Sharon Momanyi has the details.
Hundreds of Turkana residents held demonstrations in oil drilling camps in the area. They protested against the operations of Tallow Oil Company. They blocked roads and invaded the camps, paralyzing all operations.
Mbona watu wengine ndo wanakuja kuibenefit sio tuko hapa chini. Haya hiyo hapa tangu imesemekana kuna kazi. Kuna vijana wengi hapa wamekaa jobless mpaka saa hizi. Na wako watu wamesoma, kuna makaratasi zao, madereva, wengine ni wanazofanya kama wapishi, kuna wengine wanazofanya kama watchman, kuna wengine yani kila kazi yote wanyanyiko wako Turkana wako na kazi ya kufanya.
The residents are complaining that the company has failed to honor agreements it had with the community. Agreements of job creation and the issuance of tenders to the local community.
If this oil has come to this place, let locals be given that priority of contracts and tenders, so that some women who are actually selling sukuma wiki can be given tender of supplying sukuma wiki instead of giving someone from Kitale.
Turkana South MP James Lomean and Turkana East MP Nixon Ngikolong led the protests, stating that oil discovery was meant to boost the region's economy, but that at the moment, the activity is not benefiting the community.
Give them these tenders that they claim. You give the vehicles, we give contract to their vehicles, we employ them, those who can qualify to be employed. I think from there, we can empower the Turkanas now, and this issue of relief, it will stop.
The protests caused security concerns within the oil drilling camps, prompting the company to suspend operations across Twiga 1 and the Tuko camps in Turkana East and Turkana South sub-counties. The company's staff were forced to pack their bags and flee the camps. Questions now abound on how the oil exploration firm goes about its employment and tendering process. The locals are demanding a guarantee of 70% of the available jobs. But what exactly is the company bound to offer? What it will take to resolve the conflict remains to be seen. For now, though, the essential question is, what exactly does the Tallow Oil Company owe the local Turkana community? And are their complaints justified? Sharon Momani, KTN, Nairobi.
And we have now received Tallow's official position on this development. And in a statement, the company says, and I quote, Tallow confirms that there have been a number of demonstrations at Tallow-operated sites in northern Kenya regarding local concerns around employment. The statement further states that Tallow is working with the central and county governments to bring these demonstrations to a peaceful and orderly close as soon as possible. The company has confirmed suspension of operations across 2 oil blocks in Turkana East and Turkana South sub-counties. Tallow states that its priority at the moment is to ensure the safety and security of its staff. The company has, however, reiterated that it is committed to work in Kenya and to working with the government. In working with the government, the communities and the people of Kenya to ensure that the newly found resource brings lasting benefits to all Kenyans. Now, in Garissa County, the area has been hard hit by the prolonged dry spell, and residents now fear that without urgent intervention, the drought may start to take its toll on human lives. The residents are experiencing a severe water shortage, and many have been forced to trek for miles in search of it. Scores of residents have now pitched camp by the roadsides to wait for government water supply trucks. Learning has also been disrupted in parts of the county as the pupils accompany the adults in search of water. Back to Nairobi now, and the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon has over the years been a favorite for Kenyans. Now, other than the prize money of 1.5 million shillings pocketed by the winners, Kenyans come out in their numbers as they take part in a race that has over the years produced newcomers who end up conquering the world. Kenneth Mungaria and Winfred Kwamboka emerged this year's 21-kilometer winners, and as Victor Ogale reports, sideshows punctuated this year's race.
As the sun rose atop the Nairobi skyline, early Sunday morning, a day considered to be sacred, most Nairobians prepare to attend churches and worship centers. However, there is another group of 21,000 Kenyans preparing for the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, with 778 athletes, men and women, eyeing the 1.5 million shillings prize money in the full marathon. However, it was Kenneth Mungara who carried the day in a time of 2 hours, 11.40 minutes, ahead of Hosea Korir, who received 650,000 shillings, and Barnabas Kipiego, who was awarded 150,000 shillings. The women's category saw 2012 Nyanza Secondary School's cross-country champion Winfrida Kwamboka carried the day ahead of Florence Chipsoy and Agnes Chipkoskei Cheserek.
Nilijaribu kufungua kidogo, nikaona anifuati, nikaenda kabisa, nikafungua mpaka ikafikia urefu wa mita 100. Sasa nika maintain.
The event also saw complaints arose from athletes who claimed that some of their colleagues used shortcuts.
Over the years, the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon has continued to gain popularity, with the number of participants increasing. This could be greatly attributed to the 1.5 million shillings prize money attached to it.
This lady, for example, claimed to have won the women's full marathon, but her cheating ways were discovered and she had no option but to disappear into the crowds.
Walikuwa wamenipatia kadi ya namboni, lakini wakubwa wakakuja nyang'anya na kupatia huyo. Huyo hata tujui alitokea wapi, kwa sababu tukifika huko mahali tulikuwa tunageukia katika barabara ya Mombasa, hakukuwa na mtu kama huyo mbele yangu, sababu nikigeuka lazima ningeona mwenye ananifuata.
The final results which we have here, and those final results, we go through the chip timing, and then we also confirm with the people who are in the lead cars.
Could the tough economic times and the greed for money be a determinant for the deceiving ways that are slowly eating up a sport considered the country's best?
Kweli watu walikata kwa barabara, na ile ilisababisha watu wakate ni wale watu wa family run, wale walikuwa wamejaa kwa barabara, walifanya watu waweze kuingia kwa, ilibidi wale sisi ambao tunakimbiaji tunaingia kando, wengine wanatoka nje ya barabara.
The 21 kilometers of Solomon Mutai emerged the victor in a time of 1 hour 2.54 seconds ahead of Joel Kipkemoi, with Gore Chepkoech winning the women's category ahead of Pascalia Chepkorir. Amos Kimite won the 10-kilometer race ahead of Leonard Kipkoech won and Josephat Kiprop. Victor Ogale, KTN.
Now, it is common in Nairobi to see pedestrians dashing across busy roads, oblivious of the danger. This has led to reports of rising numbers of deaths on these roads. Now, why is it that some people avoid using footbridges? KTN's Catherine Amando is here with that story.
Thika Superhighway has been for a while now known as a death trap for both motorists and pedestrians. A few other spots in the city, like the Bellevue South B Junction on Mombasa Road and the Cabana Stage, have not been left behind. But it seems that Kenyans are slowly learning how to use the footbridges. Except for this man, whose excuse could have been that he had several loads to carry across the road. Though the flyovers and zebra crossings along Thika Superhighway are few and far in between, most Kenyans obey the rules. At Nairobi's Pangani and Ngara areas, however, there were more exceptions. While agile men ignored the real purpose of the highway railings and put their lives in danger just to get to the other side of the road faster.
Unaona vile magari zinapita, zingine ziko mbio. So saa zingine hata unaweza kaa pale ukingoja ufuke barabara, hata unaona msongamano. Saa zingine hata sometimes unaweza gonga na gari.
Afadhali uende safari refu ufike mzuri kuliko uende safari fupi na ukose kufika.
Something that has come maybe the last a few years. So as I think we continue using and more coming up, this idea of the bridge will now becoming customized to people.
In between January and July of this year, Nairobi County recorded 1,181 accidents. There were 2,044 victims, 455 of whom died, and 1,589 were injured. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Please do make use of the footbridges across our superhighways in the country. Better safe than sorry. Besides, it's also good exercise, I believe, going up and down the footbridge. Right, now, the United Nations has pledged its continued support to the Somali government. Somalia is rebuilding its infrastructure and institutions following decades of war. During a visit to Somalia, Deputy Secretary General Jan Eliasson held talks with Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. He said terrorism has reaffirmed the need need for joint action with the Somali government to ensure peace and stability. The Somali president said Somalia must now take charge of its own institutions.
United Nations was the guarantor and the protector of the Somali unity and sovereignty in the last 20 years. This is the time now Somali state is back. We are sovereign, recognized by the international community, and we are standing for the protection, and we are going to take over the responsibility and the burden from the United Nations. And this is a time we stand here with the United Nations to move forward and have a stable and united Somalia.
I think show the solidarity that is felt from many parts of the world to Somalia's new government and leadership and parliament. We hope very much that we will be able to contribute to increase security in the country, both through the presence of international troops, but also by strengthening the Somali National Army and security forces.
Right, we want to take a short break right now on KTN Weekend Prime this Sunday evening. But it is Sunday, and so Checkpoint is here, and we will be discussing, of course, the latest statements that were made by the president regarding the ICC, which way forward, and what indeed are the consequences of the president choosing to snub the ICC or not. We'll be taking a look at all of these perspectives, and tonight, as usual, we have Professor Edward Kisiangani who's with us. We also have Moses Kuria, and in between the two of them we have nicely placed Professor Gitile Naituli to act as the referee for when things get hot right here on Checkpoint. That's all coming up after the break. Remember, you can start tweeting us with your thoughts, your comments, your questions. The hashtag is Checkpoint. We'll be right back. Your weekly political analysis, Checkpoint.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We are now on Checkpoint, and we want to have our discussion as we had promised you earlier. Now, yesterday you did see that story we ran about the members of National Assembly who mentioned the fact that TNA had officially asked the president to not attend the Hague hearings come November the 12th. And then, of course, the president made a statement that many said was open to different forms of interpretation. Take a look at what the MPs had to say, and indeed what the president himself said regarding this matter.
We will not allow in this country our president to be taken outside in an outside court. We will not allow.
Kwa hivyo hata kama deputy president akikuja, tutaweza kuamua hata yeye hatarudi hiyo wiki.
Sisi wenyewe tunasimama airport, hata kama wewe mwenyewe ukitaka, we don't allow you to go because of sovereignty.
Mambo haya ambayo mnasikia ya huko mimi sitaki kuyataja. Viongozi anyway tuko hapo hiyo line hiyo.
Right, interesting there. And let's just get that perspective. Professor Kisiangani, what do you make of that statement by the president? Will he go, will he not go?
He's saying he will not go. I think he has let the cat out of the bag. He says he will not go. And again, the MPs have said they would put a barricade at the airport to stop him from going. My opinion about this is that sometimes you can have very expensive friends who tell you, who cheer you when things are not right, and they put you in trouble. The president has to be trusted from his own word. When he stood for elections, he said that was a private matter and they will handle it. That is the point at which we want to look at the president and assess the veracity of his statements. And when he said that it was private, we hoped that he will deal with it legally. But the way the matter is graduating now, it's going to levels where now it has turned political. There is an attempt to mobilize the entire African continent to enter into this matter. If indeed the MPs believe that Bensouda does not have evidence and is playing around with people, the president can have his way in court and prove that Bensouda doesn't know what she's doing, and he will come out very strong.
Okay. Interesting point you bring up about the president's friends and the people that surround him and what they're telling him. Moses, is he being misled by those close to him?
I think there's a divided opinion on this issue of whether the president should actually go to the ICC or not. And when I say the president, I'm saying the presidency, because I think the way this government has actually tried to come out is of a shared presidency. That is the president and the deputy president. There are those people who are of the opinion that maybe they should go to the court, they should defend themselves, and because in all but certainty it looks like there's no case, it's a very weak case, then they should go the whole hog and prove themselves and get done with this matter once and for all. There are those people who also say that that the whole sovereignty and the whole nationhood of Kenya is on trial there, that the whole thing actually, what they're saying is that the deputy president for the last 1 month or so has been serving a sentence right there, being humiliated, having to sit through and listen to witnesses who don't even know their names.
So out of all those schools of
out of those two, I cannot
yes.
give you my personal opinion,
yes.
is that I'm with the latter. I am one of those people who, having watched what's happening there, I think is a waste of time and space and our sovereignty to have the president or the deputy president sitting in there. And by the way, I've studied over the last few weeks what happened in Arusha during the ICTR, the Rwandan trials. And the way the trial of the deputy president is going is you can see generally there's overgeneralization of the whole thing. And because there's one fact that is not disputable, that is crimes were committed in Kenya. The theory that was advanced in Arusha is that as long as we don't have a dispute that crimes were committed, you can pick on Yvonne Okwara or anybody and say they are to blame.
Moses, if that be the case, as you say, that there's a lot of generalization and that the case is weak, why not go with the first option that you'd mentioned of just going the whole hog of the case and perhaps using it as an example to the ICC?
That would be logical, and that's what I'm saying about you compare with other cases like Arusha, even some cases that have gone through the ICC, that all they want is somebody to convict. Yeah? That once we agree that there's no doubt that crimes were committed, they can pick on anybody and convict anybody.
These are
let me finish.
These are wide allegations.
This court is actually a jungle court. It is a wild court.
So Moses,
the only warden of that court, of that jungle, is NGOs, and the only people, those people who listen to is NGOs.
All right. So Moses, just to cap that, he shouldn't attend.
He shouldn't belong to an NGO. Okay. And this is please, you are an intelligent person. I hoped so. How can you make such a wide remarks about NGOs? You talk like a politician on the marketplace. We are discussing serious matters. They have legal implications in this country. We are not talking about it. Forget about what the politicians are saying. We have a duty to inform the country, and when we do that from the point of knowledge. We have a constitution. Who invited the ICC here? You
nobody. And we've discussed this before.
Okay, all right. Let's bring in Professor Naituli for just a moment. Give us your thoughts.
Let me say this, that the politicians, when they are telling Uhuru not to go, they really don't like him. They are not his friends.
Yeah.
They know too well that Uhuru doesn't go to the Hague, warrants will issue. Our president will be an international fugitive. Africa will do nothing. What have they done for Zimbabwe? And what will happen, what is worse, if that scenario unfolds the way these MPs wanted to unfold, or the way the Kenyans who are telling Uhuru not to go want to unfold, is that it's going to create anxiety and make 2017 a nightmare. And they cannot use sovereignty to tell the president to go, because where was it when we slaughtered each other in 2007? The point is, the president, when he campaigned, he told us that he is innocent. I believe him, because he said so. We believed him as a country, and we voted for him. What we are saying is that he needs to go there and declare his name. He's not the first person to be accused.
Right.
Clinton was accused in the United States. He was tried by the Senate. He was acquitted. He was still the president. So Uhuru is a very humble man, the way I see him. He needs to continue with that.
Right. Professor, you know, I know we keep saying this was a personal matter, but the fact that Kenyans elected the two as president and deputy president perhaps makes it a matter for all to be considered. Sure. And here's the thing, the consequences of us being a pariah state, maybe we don't really understand what that is. So could you just elaborate on that?
You see, the consequence of that means our president will be locked here, because these guys can grab him anywhere else, because we are still members of that of the Rome Statute. Even if we are not, he will still warrant to issue, will be a pariah. Our president will be a fugitive, international fugitive. That means he will greatly be limited, and that means 2017 will be do or die for him.
Okay.
So that anxiety, we don't need it as a country.
In terms of consequences too, I would like to add this. I have spent most of my time reading, and look, anybody who takes on the Western world, I don't know of any leader that took on the Western world and succeeded.
I know.
Interesting statement. Moses?
No, I know. We fought for independence against the West. We won. We beat those guys. You know, they went back home. We won, and not just us, the whole of Africa. This defeatist policy, I don't know. I mean, why do you believe we are so weak?
I'm not talking about weaknesses. I'm talking about certain things. The world is controlled by the West in many respects, and they also control the information system. If, for example, I was in the position of the president and I was able to advise him, for example, I would not have asked him to give the speech he gave at the AU, because there were certain blanket statements like race handing. Now, you put even the sympathizers who would have sympathized with Kenya and in the West in that same box and call them race hunters. Now, my position is this. The matter that the president is facing, he knew he has a case even before the elections. But when he was taken to The Hague, he was not president. And we think that he should handle this matter, but we have given him the mandate to rule this country. Now, a way should be worked out. Anybody who loves the president should tell him, look, Mr. President, you have this case. People are saying you are a murderer. People are saying you are a killer. We think you are not.
That's why
there is a difference between the prosecutor and the court.
Okay, let's understand this. Here's the thing. The ICC always struggles to have a maintenance between, or a balance between, justice and stability and peace in the countries. Will there ever be a right time to try these two individuals when the country will not be polarized on this issue, Moses?
Can I say something without the fear of equivocation? That ICC is a political court. It was created through political instruments. The Rome Statute was a political process. Some countries opted to support that process. Other countries like India, like America, like China, actually 75% of the world is not in the ICC. ICC is a political creature, and it's going to...
Let me make a correction to him. The reason why the ICC was created, what he's calling political, is a sideshow. The point is that in the mid-90s, we lost 1 million people in Rwanda. The world had no mechanism to deal with that, and it just watched. France was accused of watching. Now, on that basis, they said, if there is going to be another genocide, what will we do? We say we create a court which is of last resort, but we strengthen the local institutions.
We need to look at this thing in a very sober manner, in my opinion. And I'm saying sobriety is required because those who are here in 2007, you know that this country actually almost went to the dogs. There was no police force. In fact, the only institution which was left as a national institution was the Kenya Army. The police are disintegrated. Now, I have to say that there was a lot of peace in the last election, and I have to accredit that to the presence of the ICC.
Yes.
So to me, we need to be very sober here. The point is, it's very humiliating. I agree for the country and everybody to have your president sitting there being tried in foreign lands.
Yes.
But there's a price that we may have to pay to maintain this country through 2017.
Moses?
Because that's where I see the...
You know, I go back to the issue of that there's no dispute that crimes were committed in this country. And, you know, from what Professor is saying is like, you know, the forest has been burnt down by a mongoose. Now, taking a rabbit and beating it up and asking it to confess is a mongoose is not going to help us. And that's what exactly is happening within the ICC. That we know very well that crimes were committed. You just pick anybody, alphabetical or otherwise, and say it is Mr. Kenyatta, it is Mr. Ruto, it is Mr. Sang, and say those are the very people who are going to carry the... Because that is exactly what's happening.
Precisely,
that's exactly what happens in this...
That is precisely the point that I would like to ask my friend Kuria to understand. You have to separate the ICC judges from the prosecutor.
Yeah.
Because
I have an answer for that.
No, wait. Be patient. The prosecutor is going to make her prayers to the judges. Some of the prayers she has made in the past have been overruled by the judges. You cannot put the prosecutor and the judges in the same room and say the ICC is a bad thing. Why don't we wait and give the judges a chance to make a ruling?
All right.
Because this is a case.
Okay, Moses.
Let me respond to that. You know, in Arusha, and I keep on referring to Arusha for a reason, the chief prosecutor at Arusha, do you know who it was? It was Osuji, who is now the presiding judge. Do you know who was his deputy? It is Bensouda. Today, Bensouda is prosecution, Osuji is judge. But there's a very thin line within the ICC jurisprudence between prosecution and the bench. And they keep on playing this 2-to-1. You see all the rulings are split 2-to-1. Because the whole thing is well choreographed. You know, a judge at the ICC, do you know how much they earn? They earn 5 million shillings a month. The whole thing is an industry. It's a cartel that's well set out, that has got so many stakeholders.
You know, we can talk about salaries, but
Moses, first of all, let me say
Moses has lost his head.
You know what we are actually doing, we are indulging in, we are theorizing here. The truth of the matter is that both Ruto and the president, they submit themselves to the ICC. They cannot be jailed as long as they are sitting on that seat. Because if you jail them, how do you replace them? That is the question. I don't think ICC want to go that route.
So
but ICC...
You seem to know something you don't.
No. ICC need to guarantee justice for the affected, for the victims that we don't seem to think about at all. They are not in our radar. But ICC is seeing them. And ICC need to find a process of doing that, and I believe that is what is happening. None of these people, as long as they sit there, can be jailed because of the problem of replacing them.
I want to contribute to that point because it is critical for our viewers. The fear of the president and deputy president is not that ICC can say you are now convicted and you should be jailed, because they can still refuse to go. The fear of the president and the deputy is in the constitution. If they have violated international law and it is accommodated in our constitution, then that is the basis of impeachment, which you see in our constitution, and they are not exempt from impeachment. Anybody can go to parliament and move an impeachment motion on that basis. So that is where they are fearing. So it's not about whether they can be jailed or not. If any pronouncement comes from The Hague, that ends their presidency.
Okay, all right. I'd just like to ask you one thing, Moses. Do you think the court will ever be fair? Because you talk a lot about it being a political process and the fact that this will never be a fair process. And now we know the UN Security Council will be discussing the deferral request that has been made. Even if it is deferred by a year, or even if we give the two time to rule for the next 10 or 20 years, as we say, do you think there'll ever be a right time to try the two, and that it'll ever be fair, or should we just do away with the ICC altogether?
You know, I go back to December of 2010 when Mr. Ocampo, the former prosecutor of the court, said that he's going to make an example out of Kenya. So in my mind, it is very clear that this was not about justice. It was about making an example. He said that I want to pick some few names here and some few names here.
Moses,
so the whole thing,
Moses, don't be trivial.
Moses, can allow me to interject?
Please.
Sort of the same way you would discipline your child. You say you want to make an example, and they say it in schools, you know, from time to time, that we want to punish so and so. And they even say it.
You should discipline people who are guilty. You should discipline people out of an investigation process that is credible.
How do we determine guilt?
No, stop heckling, Professor.
No,
you should not discipline people on the basis of investigation that were outsourced to NGOs. It's very clear that in the Kenyan cases, The investigations were outsourced to NGOs. The process was a stillbirth from the beginning.
So back to my question,
how
Moses, do you think it'll ever be fair?
How can you plant potatoes and harvest maize? It is not possible.
So it'll never be fair?
It will never be fair. And by the way, they just want to say, you know, we just want some convictions from Kenya, one way or the other. By the way, let me say this without fear, that, you know, Kenya, we are first in many things. In athletics, we are first. You know, M-Pesa is World Acclaims #1, but you're not going to be the first country whose president sits in a dock on a foreign country.
All right. Professor, they've said in that clip that we watched just at the start of this discussion that even now that the deputy president is in the country, that they may ask him not to return. Consequences of that?
I think there are, because the warrant will issue. You see, this is a court. That is a court, just like our courts here. You absent yourself without the cause of authority, the court will try to enforce its own authority. Now, Moses is right on only one thing. The ICC made the mistake when it took 3 PNU and 3 ODM. It looked like they were balancing. They also made the mistake when they failed to indict the 2 principals, President Kibaki then and Raila Odinga, because these were the people in front. The others were merely what are they called? The main principals. The protagonists in that contest were Kibaki and Raila. Those should have been indicted if ICC was looking for people whom bear the greatest responsibility, because that's what they told us. Now, when they failed to do that, they politicized the process. And that's why, in a sense, Moses is correct on this. Now, having been politicized, though, I don't believe the deputy president and the president can actually afford not to go to the Hague. It's going to be there will be serious consequences for the country.
While I agree with the statement you've just made, there will be consequences, I don't agree with your argument that Kibaki and Raila should have been implicated. That is not a legal argument. That is a pedestrian argument, because I can bear the greatest. I can ask Kuria to go and throw a stone at Yvonne, and when the courts come to investigate, they look at Kuria as a person who is over 18 years. And he, on his own understanding, threw a stone and hit Yvonne. If you do that, they don't take me in because I told you to do that. They know you have a brain.
But so isn't that the same reason that the president and the deputy are in there for financing and, you know, forced evictions of persons from
you see, evidence is still coming out. We haven't had enough evidence. And I'm not in any way saying I'm going to defend the evidence that comes out. My position is very clear by the position I've taken in this discussion, that the president and the deputy should not prejudge what will happen at the ICC. Maybe even the judges will acquit them. If the evidence is showing they are likely to be acquitted. Now, when they are acquitted, they will be stronger. And that's why I agree with what the professor is saying, that the real friends of President Uhuru and Ruto are people like myself who are telling them to attend court. But the ones who really want to take advantage of their plight are advising them not to attend court.
Okay, Moses, we're coming to the end, so your final comments?
I want to challenge what the professor is saying. You see, the president and the deputy president have said again and again they will cooperate with the court. What have they gotten for it? That matters go out there. We say these people have got constitutional duties to carry out. Excuse them so that they can be able to carry out their duties, even as their lawyers argue the matter in court. In the first case of Mr. Ruto, it is actually, what's her name, Gradual Otieno, who wrote a letter saying no. Now, this particular time, you find that judges have ruled this way, then it is appealed. Because for them, it's a circus. And by the way, I just got a letter today that has been addressed to the UN Security Council by KPTJ, Gradual Otieno, and all those people saying, don't agree to the deferral. So I'm asking, in this jungle, how come only one warden, the NGOs and those people from the evil society who are listened to, how come it's not the body politic of the 40 million people?
Perhaps
sorry, I mean civil society.
No, but you know, you don't believe, Yvonne, Kuria does not believe in the ICC. He's complaining that somebody had asked for a deferral, and he has issues with that. Why are you worried about deferral? Because you were asked by Yvonne, if they differ, will this case ever take off? Why don't you just say you don't want the ICC because it is not doing what you would have expected?
By the way, Professor, you know, for the first time this year, you are right, because I don't like the ICC.
Yes, say that.
I don't support the ICC. The whole reason I bring the whole issue of deferral is just to show you that, again, the first time it was gradual Otieno. This time is a whole body of those.
So you don't believe that the UN Security Council later this week
to the UN Security Council? So the issue is, this is a case. ICC is a case. Kenyans on one side and the NGOs on the other side. Period.
Oh, how many? No, you can't say that.
All right, let's have the final words from you,
don't
Professor
think
Knighton.
you need not to support ICC because our leaders are on trial there. What you need to look is what we have been doing to each other in this continent. We have behaved very badly across this continent. Now that behavior, it needs a strong body to check it.
Strong foreign body. Add the word foreign.
Yeah, it's okay. If you want to say foreign,
Okay.
I want to say yes, because what we have been doing here, India means a lot of Ugandans, I don't know how many. Because of Central Africa, move to Sesek of Zaire. Even here, before we have this democracy.
Professor, you know, my whole point is that our quest for justice, and I agree on about the quest for justice, the quest of justice is being used by the ICC to pick on Professor Naituri, to pick on anybody at random.
I think we went there.
All right, okay. We really do need to conclude our discussion.
Yes.
Thank you for your thoughts, Professor Kisiangani.
My thoughts are this. I still have hope that the president will go to the, although he has said he's made his remarks, I still hope he'll go to the ICC, defend himself, and clear his name. He respects the rule of law, and he protects the rule of law in Kenya, so he should also succumb to the international justice system and let people judge whether the ICC is doing a good job or not. And I hope the Deputy President will not be derailed by people who might be interested to make a killing out of the plight of the president and the deputy president. So they should actually ignore the MPs who are telling them not to go.
Okay, all right, thank you. And we have to leave it at that for now. Thank you all very much for being here on Checkpoint. That's it for Checkpoint tonight. And of course, just a reminder that the United Nations Security Council will be having its sitting this week. They will hear submissions from the AU regarding this matter, and we'll continue to keep you updated on how that unfolds. And indeed, even as we come closer and closer to the date of November the 12th to see how this plays out. Thank you for your feedback on Checkpoint. We take a short break now. We have some sports news for you after the break. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on KTN Weekend Prime. Let's give you a recap of our top story this Sunday evening. Pressure is mounting on President Uhuru Kenyatta to skip his trial at the International Criminal Court if the deferral motion is denied. This comes as the United Nations Security Council is set to hold a crucial meeting that may be the turning point for the Kenyan cases. It is a sitting that Kenya and the African Union hope will consider the motion to defer the cases against the president and his deputy. But the Jubilee coalition has resolved that the two should snub the trials anyway. Meanwhile, the deputy president returned home today to hold brief for the president, who travels to Rwanda tomorrow. Let's take you to Mandera County now, where leaders have converged to develop a blueprint to address challenges unique to the county. These include terrorism and ethnic clashes. Mandera is a frontier county vulnerable to security challenges posed by the Al-Shabaab terror group from neighboring Somalia. According to the area governor, increasing the number of reservists and intensifying patrols have served to reduce the terror threat. He says, however, that inter-ethnic differences have remained a challenge.
Centralized commanded ambulance services, school and community prevention health services in the development of our own county. And I think, however, without
county Hassan Osman, Mashua Aziz Farah, who is member of women.
We've also absorbed 127 police reservists into some sort of employment. We've given them 7,500 Kenya shillings per month.
We want to convert the current system of pastoralism, which is merely
herding animals and keeping them for prestige into a commercial enterprise. And in that regard, I think what we are doing is to invest into a modern abattoir, international abattoir, really.
We, as leaders of that community, and together with all the opinion leaders, and also with our neighboring counties, have come together and say there must be peace.
Now, Nakumatt Holdings has consistently defied tragedy to build a regional retail giant. KTN's Joseph Bonyo brings us that story of resilience from a corporate entity.
Tragedies like this, nobody wants, nobody would expect it. And I hope that we don't have any more tragedies. We will soon be running out of strength.
From a humble beginning in Nakuru town, Nakumatt Supermarkets has today become part and parcel of Kenya's retail shopping life. Boasting of several branches across the country, the retail chain is today arguably a leading player in the region. However, the rise to the top has not been easy for the chain stores. Like any other business, they have experienced ups and downs, but some of the glitches have remained marked in the firm's history.
Everybody needs to be alert, be put on their jobs, and everybody needs to protect what we have achieved so far.
The events of the Saturday morning 5 years ago was the first to send chills down the spine of the retail chain owners. While they still hold that their occupation of the space on Thika Road at that time was valid, no insurance company came to their rescue. As a result, the firm lost billions worth of stock in the facility.
We were told that it was on a road reserve and it was an act of government. We were not covered by any insurance. We had a total loss there, which we still are looking for answers as to why somebody would have ordered such a demolition instead of giving us notice to go and do what we had to do. At least we would have saved a few things here and there.
In 2009, another tragedy struck the supermarket's farm early afternoon as the fire gutted down its downtown branch in the Nairobi Central Business District. The branch was iconic to the farm being one of the first it rolled out the 24-hour operations. Although the farm received compensation for the tragedy, the effects were far-reaching. More recently, Nakumatt was at the center of another tragedy when terrorists attacked the Westgate shopping mall, killing over 67 people and leaving several hundreds others injured. Sad as it may have been, the results of the attack and rescue missions has left the farm with more questions than answers, even as they count their losses.
Again, we have a big question here. What went wrong? Did the 4 terrorists make our defense forces or our security forces or whatever our part of the government do what they have done? I mean, a fire inside Nakumatt, everything is in ash. The building has collapsed.
For any business, calamity after the other and losses running into billions, the easiest way out would have been to quit. But what is it that has kept the faith for Nakumatt?
The support that we have got from every stakeholder who is part and parcel of Nakumatt, be it our staffs, be it our suppliers, be it our financials, they've all supported the vision that we have for the country. It is not something that I can decide alone and say I will carry on. It is all as a part and parcel of all the support and help we get from everybody.
In the face of tragedies and calamities, Nakumatt Holdings has continued to soldier on, perhaps a reflection of Kenya's resilience in times of difficulties. Joseph Bonyo, KTN.
An inside look at Indian weddings.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Kenya Commercial Bank are this year's Floodies Sevens winners. The bankers bagged the title after beating Total Nondi's 28-3 in the finals played last evening. This was the bankers' third Floodies title after clinching the title in 2005 and 2007.
KCB continued their 15th rugby dominance by adding another trophy to their cabinet after winning the Impala Floodies 28-3 over Total Nondis. The battle was evenly matched in the opening minutes with both teams pressing on both ends. In the 17th minute, Peter Mutai took KCB ahead on 3 points with a well-leveled taken penalty try. Phil and Sinei leveled 2 minutes later with his penalty try for Nondis. Mutayo was at it again with yet another penalty try before Alpha Sotieno touched down, and the conversion was well taken to give KCB that 13-0 halftime lead. After the breather, KCB picked it where they left and dominated play, with Total Nondis doing most of the defending, which Omuka Alan was able to beat and give KCB 18-3 lead. KCB went ahead through Omuka Alan to make it 28-3 for the final score.
Currently at KCB, we are around 105 players who are competing for positions, and that's why it has been competitive club-wise, back in the club, even at training. It has been evident. Whoever has been there during training, it has been evident, and we just attribute this to our depth.
In the varsity final, Kenyatta University Black Blood closed Strathmore University 2015. Kenyatta University is now putting their hopes on the Kenya Cup that kicks off soon.
Our biggest focus should be being at the top 10. Unlike the other time, we were given a little bit baptism of fire.
The Green Lions of KCB are now the official 32nd Kings of the Impala Floodlights in the 2013 Impala Floodies, and all eyes will be on them to see how they fare on the oncoming battles in the pitch. Moses Wahisi, KTN Sports.
I want to leave you with something light and interesting for you to watch after all our news this evening. It is usually the norm for couples to hold engagement ceremonies before wedding, with most of these ceremonies ascribing to certain traditions and cultures. Now, the trend is no different among the Hindus. It was all colorful and magnificent as members of the Hindu community in Nakuru turned out to celebrate the engagement ceremony of one of their own, Kaval Patel and Shinal Patel. The ceremony was, however, filled with uniqueness as the bride's family from Eldoret visited the groom's family in Nakuru. According to the priest who officiated the ceremony, Kirti Purchit, traditional prayers between the two families must be done before the couple exchange rings. However, prior to wearing the rings, ornaments referred to as flower garlic are worn on the necks. Kirti also notes that the couple is mandated to bend and touch the toes of those who come out to offer them presents as a sign of accepting the blessings that come along. Well, that's all we had time for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, throughout the weekend, have a fantastic week ahead. God bless you and bye-bye.